Here we are again. How now, brown cow. Welcome back to episode 9 of the Hometown Brawn podcast. I'm your host, Sven Hansen. I'm an entrepreneur, just like many of you. And the Hometown Brawn podcast is all about pulling back that curtain on entrepreneurship, talking about the battle scars, talking about the stresses, the worries, but ultimately also talking about all of the successes that we're seeing as entrepreneurs. We're going to talk today with Amanda Sutton, and she's our guest for today's Zoom call. She's going to talk to us about communications. Now, Amanda Sutton is a communications consultant, communications expert, and an entrepreneur behind Catalyst Communications Choreography. Now, Catalyst Communications Choreography is all about every aspect of communications. But today in particular, she's going to join us to talk some about the who, right? And today's episode really is about who. Who are you? Who is your business? Who is your team? And who also is your value? So we've talked about the why, why buy your products or services, where to buy your products or services. Now we're going to talk about the who. And a very important key in providing and outlining your value proposition is the who. And I think more than ever, it's been very important now to talk about who you are, because that does lend a lot of credibility. I mean, before, people would just be impulsive and would make buying decisions a lot easier than they are now. I mean, people are very conscious about their buying decision. And it doesn't just mean that that product is going to make their life better anymore. It means that they want to support who is behind that product or that service. And so instead of people being impulsive and making those buying decisions quickly, they're doing more research and they want to be wined and dined per se before we get their money. Before I get into this more, please subscribe below to our channel. You see this really nice coffee mug that I have here. We're going to tell you how you can get your hands on one of these and drink some coffee with us while you listen, or tea or water. And I'll get into that in a second, but make sure you do subscribe because that's how you're going to win one of those. And you probably also notice I got a fresh haircut. So before we get into this, thank you, Doug Ford, in Ontario for opening up the economy. Stage 2 has started now. And for me, I have a lot of retailers that are barbers or hair salons that carry our products, Always Bearded products. And so great to see some of those places open. And because I know that they've been really hurting because they couldn't do anything at all while the economy was shut down. So great to see those open again. Also great to see that we can talk to, we can bring more people into our social circle, 10 people, right? So make sure and follow those guidelines though, guys, because I know as things get relaxed, it's easy to keep adding more and more to it, and it could quickly get out of hand. So, okay. So getting back to the who, right? Public relations, communications is very important to communicate who we are as specialists in our field, right? And as I was pulling back some of this content and mapping out what I wanted to talk to you about today, I realized more so that I hadn't told you my story and who I am. Right. So, I'm an entrepreneur, right? You've probably heard me talk about being a marketing professor as well as at a college here in Barrie. I'm also a father of 2. And, for me, my journey has been a little bit unorthodox. For me, I'm a 2-time high school dropout. So I left the house when I was 16 years of age, started working early, at the age of 16 full time to survive. And, at the age of 18, when many people were, or 19, when people were going to college, I was working, and I was fortunate enough to start my own business at the age of 18. But entrepreneurship literally saved my life. And I'll tell you why. There was a lot of people around me that at the time that didn't go back to school and decided to go a different way in life, different path. And, I probably would have went down that path and wouldn't be in the place that I am today. And so I've been fortunate enough to say that entrepreneurship has literally saved my life, and I'm so grateful for it, which is why I'm here talking about entrepreneurship. So I ran my own business until the age of 24, and it was direct selling, personal selling, very heavy in sales, territory management, things like that. And I learned a lot about people. I learned a lot about how to read people, how to talk to people, and how to manage people. But I could see that as the internet was progressing, how consumer behavior was happening, people were changing the way that they were buying. And a large part of that is because of the development of the internet. At the time in 2005, when I decided to go back to school, Facebook was just getting started, right? Crazy to think that only 15 years ago, Facebook was just getting started. Now they're one of the biggest companies in the world. So, but consumer behavior has changed to a point where, direct selling isn't so popular anymore. It's more or less that the consumer wants to make a buying decision on their own accord. They want to do their own research, and they want to make that buying decision without being sold or told what they are to buy or what is best, and they make their own decision. So that's marketing. And so I wanted to learn more about marketing. I had sales, but I didn't have marketing. I went back to school at the age of 24, took the mature student test, got into college, took a 3-year diploma program, graduated with honors, got like 6 scholarships in 3 years, and ended up working in the education sector because I believe strongly if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a business owner, taking a business course is a business college course at very minimum is what you need to do, because it teaches you so much about running your own business, so much about the business world that I think it really helps prepare you for running your own business. So I highly recommend that for anybody that's listening that's saying, screw school, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and make my own money, self-made, all that stuff. Guys, go to school, get some sort of base, some, business basics course under your belt. It will help you. So going back to my story, I was working in the education sector in marketing, but I really wanted to get back into running my own business. And at the time, I was working a full-time job. My beard, super scratchy, super itchy, super out of control. And so I had an aha moment, right? I went looking for products and couldn't find them. They weren't in barbershops. And barbershops were making a comeback, right? They were, men's grooming as a sector was really growing. Men were starting to take better care of themselves, right? So I started importing products, validating the market. And I would start going to barbershops at night and on weekends and seeing they wanted to buy these products for their customers. And they did. And the business was there. Now, how that business evolved to where it is today is that I realized that I had to bring in many different companies' products to provide the type of products that people wanted. And so there wasn't a line that I found that had a complete diverse line to cover any type of bearded man. So I started making my own products, right? And at the time, I started doing research. What goes into these products? How do you make them? I did a lot of research. And in my research, I found this study that came out in 2012 called The Dirt on Manscaping. They studied 17 men's grooming popular products. And of those 17 products, 4 of them had carcinogenic ingredients in them. That's ingredients that can possibly cause cancer. There was 5 products that were shown to disrupt male reproductive health. And there was 10 products that had synthetic musks or synthetic fragrance product in them, ingredient product in them. And that had shown to disrupt the hormones in animals. So, that was a very big red flag for me. I didn't want to create something that was going to harm anybody. I wanted to create a product that was going to help people. And so that's what I did. So I got working with chemists to create these stable products and that would compete with performance-based synthetic products that were popular in hair salons or barbershops. And so I started merging, the health and wellness with the performance markets to create this product line that took off. The funny story about how I started the product line in my house, after I researched the product, I would cook it up on my stove. Like I was cooking beard balm on my stove. I had boxes all over the house. My spouse was pregnant with our first child at the time. And that was kind of my moment where, I kind of decided that I had to make the jump. I had to become a full-time entrepreneur. I was about to become a full-time father. And I needed a retail space. I needed my own space. So found my retail space, downtown Barrie, started making the products there, became a full-time entrepreneur, became a father for the first time. There was a whole lot on my shoulders. And very happy that I did it. Over the last 6 years, we've grown to the point where we're in over 400 retailers post-COVID. Now, that has changed, obviously, as retailers have shut down, but they're starting to open up again. And a little bit about my story is I always did focus on online marketing. It was a big part of what I did, but retail was my driving force behind my revenues. So when that shut down, I was lucky enough to, a few months before that, get involved with Digital Main Street. And Digital Main Street helped me with some training and assistance for my online marketing plan, and was lucky enough to get one of their $2,500 grants. So I want to do a shout out to Digital Main Street. Listen to my podcast from last week where I talked to Daryl from Digital Main Street. Some great things that they're doing. But over the last couple of days, they announced they got $57 million from the federal government to help even more businesses. So guys, if you need help with your digital marketing, if you need a grant, if you need to get an online store quickly through Shopify for free, go to Digital Main Street. Check them out, get some help, get some money, get some website, and get some sales online for free. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I wanted to take that moment and just tell you who I am and why I started my company, the values behind my company, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more credibility into who I am as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and ultimately as your podcast host for the Hometown Brawn podcast. Now, we're going to get into this call here with Amanda Sutton from Catalyst Communications Choreography. She's an expert in her field, and she's going to tell you about who she is and how we can tell others about who we are, and really unravel that value proposition a little bit more as we go. Ooh, that's a nice mug, and we want to give you one for free. And here's how you can claim your free mug. Head to hometownbrawn.com, click on Claim Your Free Mug, and you'll be entered to win one of 10 mugs every single week. All you have to do is like and share across some of your social channels. And the more you enter every single day, the more chances you have to win. Every single week, we're going to give away 10 of these in hopes of growing our podcast listenership and bringing you more stories of entrepreneurship. All right. How's it going, Amanda? How are you today?
Great. Thank you. Weather is warming up and things are going well. Thanks, Sven.
Right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Like we've been talking about over the last, couple podcast episodes, I've been talking about how to break down value. Right now, I think it's more important than ever to talk about value for us as a company during a recession and an economy rebound. So I wanted you to introduce yourself, Amanda. You're a communications specialist. So I'd like you to just let our viewers know what you do.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been, my name's Amanda Sutton, and I've been in communications, for the last 20 years. My fields have been everything from news media, communications, and public relations. So back in the day, it started with, kind of ripping headlines off a fax machine in the radio station and understanding what you needed to kind of get your message out there. And then add in for businesses, all the way to starting and having my own agency for 10 years in public relations. And what I loved about public relations was helping people, put themselves out there in those situations, or rather put the best of themselves out there. And I was able to kind of help people get really focused on what their audience needed to hear, what the news media needed to hear. So I think that's where my skills really come in. And today I help everyone from business owners to consultants to companies with things like branding, of course, crisis reputation management, and public relations, media relations, and their messaging.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about your early days, with radio, and I worked in radio many years ago as well, selling advertising. I think, content has come very far since then. The internet has really created a new type of consumer that doesn't want to be sold and or told what to do, and the consumers want to seek out the information at their own pace, right? So I think communications has really, really, really changed a lot. So, over the course of our conversation, I wanted to create more of a dialogue around, how can brands create content around what they do and their core values, without coming off as selling or telling people what to do, right? So, I guess my first question is, how do we leverage, for me and my company, how do we leverage feedback on our products or, the value selling points of our product or our services into communications for prospective customers during these times?
It's a great question. And you tapped on something that's completely true, which is these days, the consumer behaves and thinks completely differently. I've wrote and have spoken a lot on the fact that communications in terms of marketing, whether you're marketing in any advertising channel or whether you're on your social channels, yes, has obviously changed, even in the last 3 years. Speed up to this past spring, and people are just done with the BS. So your question is very timely in that it's really the consumer who becomes the spokespiece in these crucial times for how you are conducting yourself as a business. I think for some businesses, they realized very quickly, maybe to their detriment, that they hadn't been paying attention to that enough, and it came right back at them. I think some businesses that were already on that trend and that wave understood very quickly they could use that to their advantage. Yeah. So when you speak in terms of, like consumer feedback, people want, not only do they want to see leadership out of their brands, no matter how large the brand is, I think they want to be part of the conversation. So businesses and companies have to really understand how to navigate that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always tried to bring the customers into the conversation. I
Mhm.
think it is really a fine line, because if we're talking about the, hey, look at me too much, or this is how great I am too much. It's the same thing. When you look at Netflix, right? Or like any of that on-demand content, people love it so much because they're not being sold as much. They can watch when they want, and so it's really changed behavior, right? But
Well, yeah, your choices are siloed, right? And
mhm,
Facebook and Google have figured that out. Netflix has figured that out. So
mhm.
you're speaking to a specific group of people.
Right. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. So what is the best way then to communicate our value add? Like I know that everything that we do, all of our messaging, I mean, the value has to be there, especially right now, because
Hmm.
that's kind of what I keep talking about it in my podcast, is that with everything that's happening right now, I think people want the value, right? They want to know that what they're buying is a good choice, because right now everyone's kind of tightening up their wallets. But in the same sense, I think that everybody has that they don't want to be sold something, right? So how do you create that honest communication around your ethos or your brand
Yeah.
values, and show them the value, but not say like, I'm better than everyone else, by me.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's like, it's icky to think of
Mhm.
yourself as any type of like, ooh, I have to be the face of my brand. That's so not me. Like,
I
I
know.
get that. I totally get that.
I've struggled with that my
Yeah.
entire time.
So here's what yeah. So I'll answer that in two parts because you brought up a great point. You started by saying that people don't want to be sold right now, and in fact, yeah, that was only heightened. They'll turn it off. So
Hmm.
if there's any type of messaging in that way, and maybe if it was working for you, pre-COVID or whatever,
Hmm.
that it's just shut down, and you'll know that through everything from your sales funnels to your marketing language to your
Bounce rates on your
customers.
websites and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to notice that in your hits. So any of that type of language isn't tolerated at this time anyway. Um, and that's what I mean by people had to pivot, they had to really step back and take a look. Now, and then the second thing is, okay, but I am and if you're saying, if I am genuine, I do have a good product. I love, I believe in what I do. It's just, how do I go about that in a non-salesy way? Then I really encourage people to always reinforce and relook at their messaging. I relook at, again, you said the who, it's really
Hmm.
to relook at the why, because if you're putting yourself out there, and if you think it's about talking about you and how great you are, you've already missed the point.
Yeah.
Nobody, that's difficult to do. Like, I've done this,
Yeah.
I've done that. Yes, you need that in your back pocket, but there's a way to bring out how great you are in terms of the problems you're able to solve. And I know everyone's like, what problem do you solve? What problem do you solve? It's like a very trendy, you'll see it a lot on ads floating around on Facebook and stuff right now, but
Yeah. It's
it's
not
more than that.
necessarily, the problem you solve. It's also how you just make someone's life easier or better, right?
You got it. You got it. And it's the value your product is adding right now. For some people, they just need to do a little work to dig out what that is and just stop and think a little bit, right? Everyone's
Hmm.
worried about the push and the outreach. Got to be here, I got to be there, I got to have my 6 channels on the go. I got to hire someone to help me fill those channels. That's not the point. And one of the 5 shifts I educate people about is to actually write less and think more.
Hmm.
And when you do that and you choose select channels, you can really get granular on how you're framing the product you have in terms of how it's helping people's lives right now.
Hmm.
So, and I'll also add some businesses, I believe, including yours, right, Sven? Like, you were looking in ways you can actually alter your production into servicing people right now. We have people and companies in Barrie that are giving great examples of turning their production facility and now producing masks or now producing
Hmm.
hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Um, those are 2 very current examples, but And of course, they're doing that from a place of sincerity. They never went in it for the win. They never went in it for the PR. That's just part of what they did. But
Right.
it's a great business story. Like, it just
Of
happens to be a
course.
great business story
Yeah.
also. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, like, I mean, we talked about like pivoting to what's happening right now. So, would you recommend then that, we start talking about, COVID related topics and, kind of walk around, how our products can be integrated into that? Or, you know, I've been trying to, take this time to connect with my customers and let them know that, we're here, and we support them, by offering promotions and things like that, and trying to be less kind of in their face, right? So I'm not sending stuff out as much as I normally would, but the content I'm trying to send out, I think I'm thinking about it, but I just don't want to overthink it to a point where it's driving me a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah. You don't want to overthink. You mean your marketing messages, you mean, and
Yeah.
stuff? Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. How to reach your customers.
Yeah. And
In those cases,
what's the proper channels? I mean, we talked about
yeah.
channels too, right? Like what's
Totally. The channels are going to, it is going to depend. So now we get into the answers that are like, it depends. And I don't want to do that to you. I don't want to get all,
Yeah, because it is
no, it
very
depends.
scenario
So I
based.
will use, yeah. So if there's a very, you have a product. So always bearded, for example,
Mm-hmm.
it's a product. It's a
Mm-hmm.
health and body care product.
Yeah.
That's going to be very different. And you have certain channels that work very well for you that you're already using. It's going to be very different than someone who is, a has a bakery and has a local, a business that they need to run, or someone that's at a consultant or real estate agent that doesn't know how to vibe. So I just wanted to make that clear, that
Yeah.
distinction. But in terms of communication, um, well, I'll answer that one first because you brought up a good point about what should we be doing now and pivoting, and I'll answer that second.
Mm-hmm.
But the channels of communication also have to be really well thought out. That's a very general answer.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think you're talking about like the volume, right? No one really knows what the right volume of message is. And it
Yeah.
also, I'm going to equate volume to urgency.
Mm-hmm.
If you can catch where I'm going,
Yeah.
the more urgent and the more value you can deliver per a person right now in this environment, if their problem is more urgent, then you could sort of get a little scale and go, my volume then of communication and messaging, there's a tolerance of it being higher because of the urgency of the problem. And so when you get into, industries such as, body care and things that were not, I guess, deemed essential for a
Yep.
lack of the term, you're going to have to do two things. One, be more cognizant of, yes, the volume and the nature of the messaging that you're delivering. And number two, can you actually pivot that message to make people realize the urgency in it? So like spin it a bit. So you actually get them thinking about something in a new way. And I always coach people in saying, tell me something I haven't heard before. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
something I haven't heard before. And again, this all depends on the product. I'm not saying that you can go and sell something frivolous and turn it and just slap a big badge on it and all of a sudden, it's virtuous. I'm not really saying spin in that way. I think you have to read your audience really
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
But for you, for example, I think you're using your platform of the business. And if you have enough of a following, and if you have a very well organized channel, as you do here, you are going to be able to, yes, not only bring your business into the conversation as an example, but speak to what you know. So all of a sudden, someone with a product based business like yourself is pivoting in different ways. Now you have experience as that. Now you're like a semi-expert in that. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
hear about the pivoting. I want to hear about like the online twists that your business had to take and how successful it is, right? I think it's 500% increase in online sales. That's a story I want to hear. I told you that before.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really interesting piece now that you have in your arsenal of expertise,
Right.
frankly, that you could also speak to.
Mm-hmm.
So navigating ways to bring your business into the conversation
Mm-hmm.
is something people could think more about.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
so it's different than talking about your business. Putting
it's
your
just
business in the
talking.
conversation versus talking about your business versus putting your business, inserting it into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the hardest thing for me was when all of this broke, 3 months ago. There was that initial silence, right?
Oh
Everybody,
yeah.
everybody was at home, and everybody just,
Oh yeah.
closed the bunker hatches, and just there was nothing going on, right? So
Uh-huh.
that was the hardest thing, was like, okay, we've got to figure out what we do now, and but like, how long does that go on for before you have to start talking to people? And I started
Mm-hmm.
wanting to talk to people more. I mean, this podcast was born out of me wanting to talk to people, because
Mm-hmm.
that communication, that connection was lost when the world
Mm-hmm.
disconnected because of COVID. And so I started wanting to talk more about things, because I'm in the health and wellness. I mean, our products are natural, and they were created not to harm anybody. And so obviously, health and wellness is a big overall overarching topic that I've always wanted to talk about as well. It's not just what you put on your body, it's what you put in
Mm-hmm.
your body. It's about self-care. It's about mental health. There's so much going on, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this podcast was really born more about the mental, the mental health part of it, right? And talking to other people and collaborating with other people. That's why us as business owners like to network and talk with other people and collaborate. But how do you do that in this time? That's kind of how this kind of came together. But I've been trying to talk a little bit more about just overall wellness.
Yeah. How do you actually bring up a good point. You created the podcast out of a need for collaboration. Um, and you were saying collaboration. So that would be a good way, is
Mm-hmm.
if you can't all of a sudden shift into a health and wellness. Well, now I'm talking about, so people automatically think they have to talk about more.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, for example, you gave the example of like, I have a natural product. So in some sense, I would like to put myself in the health and wellness sphere. But does that mean it necessarily should mean that that person all of a sudden, now I'm going to talk about, supplements and shakes, and then maybe recipes, right? This is where people go. This is where small businesses and I find entrepreneurs naturally go, is they just start to add things
Mm-hmm.
instead of sticking to what they know and become a part of collaboration. So
Mm-hmm.
you can be the expert in your thing, and it
Yeah.
cannot feel icky and not feel gross. And you can totally speak to what you know, as long as you're surrounding yourself with other experts. So
Mm-hmm.
as an example, you brought up, um, how to communicate on your channels. And then you just said, how to get that message of wellness. And yes, that during this time would be a message that people really value, because they've reevaluated even, shopping at Walmart or whatever, they're reevaluating
Yeah.
everything and about what
Everything.
they feed their family, because everything's right in their face. And now, oh my gosh, it's, easy to order online. So let's shift to collaboration and go, if I want my business or my product or whatever to be a part of that health and wellness conversation. And I'm speaking
Mm-hmm.
business because you also mentioned entrepreneurship. I'll get there in a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
Product specific, like, I think if it was a matter of collaborating with other like-minded entrepreneurs that are also looking to pivot, right? Looking to collaborate. How can we offer this to people? A lot of us have the same mission right now. We're totally on the same vibe. Like, how do we present that to talk about something new? And I'll stick to what I know, you stick to what you know, but we'll both be the experts and we'll double up. That's one example. But
Mm-hmm.
be wary, to your listeners, about adding things and adding specialties, right? Like, I'm always cautious of that. Every
Yeah.
client I've ever had, we have a big discussion about the why and about
Mm-hmm.
the who,
Yeah.
because it has to go back to who. It has to go back
Yeah.
to who you are. Yeah, you mentioned people went dark. It went dark.
Yep.
So I'll talk to timing, because I think that was one of your questions. It went
Yep.
really dark, and
Yep.
people were just shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started publishing things online. Like, okay, guys, like
We're
everyone
still
just
here.
went, yeah, it's okay. Yeah. But listen, if you've made the decision, first you have to make the decision. It was like triage. You needed to stop the bleed. For some
Yeah.
people, the bleed was just cash flow. What the
Mm-hmm.
hell's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And you had to stop the bleed, like employees, take care of your family, take care of those priority things. And so after that, like 2 or 3 weeks of triage, it was okay if it went dark. Like, honestly, if people kept pumping out messages in the same old, they were just tone deaf anyway. I mean, that's not what people need to hear right now. And
Yeah.
then about week 2 or 3, like after that first month, I started educating people that now it's time to think of how to pivot. So all the stuff we were chatting about on this podcast, I was having those
Mm-hmm.
conversations 1.5 to 2 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
and really evaluate. And now what it is the conversation is more, where does your customer need you to be
Mm-hmm.
3 months, 6 months, and a year from now?
Mm-hmm.
So I really
Contingency
challenge,
planning.
what's your contingency plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, are you still waiting for normal to happen? Because
It's not normal anymore.
yeah, that might
Things are
not
different.
happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you're still waiting for normal, I think that's where you need to do a gut check. And
Mm-hmm.
you might not have done enough soul searching.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So timing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about collaboration and, you kind of talked about this as well, is that, people are shopping online, but, I think that out of this, going into this, everybody was thinking very grand, large scale, conquer the world with your brand. And I think this has brought the local picture back into it quite a bit, because people realize that how much their community that they're in is a community, right? A community is made up of people that work together, right?
Yeah.
And before this, I think this was a very humbling moment for the world, because
Totally.
everybody was so just thinking about themselves, that I think when all of this happened, people started to care more. I mean, we've had new terms that come out like caremongering and a lot of this stuff where we start to see how badly this can impact our community around us, right? And we've realized how much small business really means to the economy, and how much how many jobs can be lost, and
Yeah.
everything can change
Yeah.
just like that, right? So on a local standpoint, we talked about this in our initial call, what I've been trying to also do that too. And I'll be first to admit that I was very wanted to conquer the world, right? With everything,
And do you mean, sorry, like, you mean you came in with big ideas of how you could help
I
everyone during
wanted,
COVID?
yeah, I wanted to do everything all at once, and I wanted, people to buy it all around the world, where, I've got a great community here, that, I can be reaching out to in more of a, targeted manner, rather than, spreading it out thin across everywhere
Right.
else. Right. And I think, when all of this happened, I started to realize how important it is in my
Yeah.
community to, to
The
be
support, you're right. And you're tapping into, like, anyone can buy your product. It's not that you're
yeah,
limited, right? You have
yeah,
this amazing product. Of course you can
hmm
go global with sales. It makes people quickly realize your homegrown support, which
yeah,
is what you're doing. And
hmm
it doesn't matter. Great if you have sales around the world, but you quickly realize if you don't have that foundational support,
hmm
your local surrounding support network can actually help your platform, to be quite honest.
hmm
They're your best source of new ideas. They're your best source of launching something new. And you're right, people are getting back to local mindset.
So what do you think we can do to better get back to our local roots? Because a lot of this value that I'm talking about is, scaling back to the basics, because, for a lot of us, that's what we have to do now, is that we have to get back to to the basics, to our core values, and throw away a lot of that BS and just say, okay, this is what we do. This is where we are. This is who we are. And this is how we do it.
Yeah.
But from a local standpoint, what can we do to work with our local media or work with our local partners to say this is who we are and this is where we are.
This is where we're at,
Yeah.
kind of like, we're here, that little flag, right?
Yeah,
Everybody,
that's right.
Yeah, like, help me out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens organically, and like your head is down, you don't realize the buzz you're creating, and then all of a sudden you get a call from the news channel and they want to chat about the great thing you're doing. And I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, that's happened a lot for me too.
Oh, amazing. So that you're on the right track. Okay. So that's an organic way. And then there's sometimes where you can find, just do better at finding the stories. I know people use the word stories, overuse it, frankly. But what are the stories how have you been hit? And something else that you talked about was vulnerability. If you're willing to be vulnerable and actually tell the other side of the story as you see it, that sometimes can be an asset and something they haven't heard before. So again, that whole ringing thing, that statement of like, tell me something I haven't heard before. It can be the same thing, just told in a new way. And a new way could even just be as easy as, from your perspective, a new immigrant to Barrie, a person of color, a male that's just starting out, in a new town, like whatever your perspective is, there's something unique that everyone can bring to their story. Family of 5 deciding to go all in on something, like whatever the story is. But there's also other ones like, I'd help someone craft a story about, being in their driveway. They were in a first responder type of service and living in their driveway. Telling that part of your story is a very natural, and away from their families while they were being of service to the community. That was a very natural way to get the word out, to underlie I just can't, go into specifics, but a natural way of telling a great story. The company or the association gets profiled and exposure, but it's actually telling a human element of the story and making people go, wow, I didn't realize how much they did for the community.
Yeah.
Still very authentic and genuine. It just, they needed someone to help to pull the story together. It wasn't, it's not like you're, and that's why obviously going to your local radio and news, and sometimes, there's a process. There's a little, there's a formula to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes people nail the formula, and your local news. And I'll say quickly about timing, like 2 months ago, they wouldn't have been into these stories. It was all still COVID related. I think the media, the local media, now they are willing to tell, and now they're on those stories of hope and whatnot. They may in the next month or so, they want to look forward a little bit now. So you have to recognize that the focus of the media will change, right? It's not so much the urgent stories they need now. It's now they're on to the next phase of story. So you have to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, what I've been trying to do personally, obviously I've seen a lot of this happen and affect the local economy. And my supply chain has really been affected from a business standpoint, just because of everything that's happening. I've taken a step back to reevaluate where I'm buying things from and trying to keep things as local as possible. For instance, my packaging, I'm getting done now locally. I have a co-manufacturer that I've lined up here in Barrie to manufacture the products locally. So, before, from an entrepreneur standpoint, you have to, you're bootstrapping things. So everything, matters, and money, your bottom line, everything matters. So important to save every last cent that you possibly can by outsourcing things in the most cheap way you can. But sometimes, you're not giving back enough to your economy. So I try to keep everything now as local as possible, as much as I can.
Great message. It's a great message to other business owners. Yeah.
Just, to do that, but also to help with the carbon footprint and things like that. Right. So I do implore a lot of other businesses to look at their supply chain and look at, where they're buying things from and see if they can keep it local to keep that dollar in the community. Right.
Yes. And, yours was one of the businesses I noted when at the right time you were pivoting and thinking of all this. I know it was, and it's, you can even say, right, it's been a ton of work. Like,
It's
it's
been
not
a
like
lot
you've
of work.
slowed down. You're
No.
probably more busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Way more busy.
And because you pivoted. And so you got to kick in that high gear to have these ideas and bring them to fruition, but it'll be worth it in the long run. So
right.
yeah, it's a great platform, and you're going to set the tone for other businesses. So what happens, people start to look to that and then want your opinion on that. And right.
So would you say then, if I was to leave this conversation off with just a tip for entrepreneurs and how they can better map out how they navigate whatever's coming forward, because nobody really knows, is it the second wave that's coming? Is it, I hope not, but how do we contingency plan for every type of scenario and, try to build some future content around, pieces of what can happen or how we'd like to see things happen, so that we can release content coming up in the next 6 months, a year, because, our marketing has stopped. Like our marketing, it came to a halt where we had to stop, pivot, and replan. Right. So like, what's the easiest way to do that? Do we just plan for every scenario and create content around that?
I mean, like, how do we plan for like future content? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. And where to go from here? Yeah.
Yeah. Future communications.
Yeah. And I'll speak to a local business example, I guess, and possibly those that could have an online component, I suppose.
Yep.
But it's never just one easy answer.
No.
Think about how you're coming across locally we've already had this discussion in the podcast.
Yeah.
But really doing the hard work of evaluating, am I just trying to push the same message? Like, honest, I know I keep saying message, but are we really shifting? Are we really saying the same thing and expecting the same result? Because that won't happen. So doing a lot of work on, again, where your customer is now, and that just realizing, like, it's not about me. It's about it's about what they need. They're the ones that have to open the wallet, really evaluate a new, for some of you, those will bring up hard questions, like whether to shut down one part of your business and just call it quits so that you can actually redirect the rest of your energy for 2020 on building that new thing, knowing when to call it quits. You're going to have to do a lot of good gut checks that way too. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And third, I guess, to answer the question, if you're still not sure, if you have the right message, I say, one of my things is, it's not being like consistent and pushy. It's being disruptive. Do you have something disruptive to say? Has anything about this whole thing just like pissed you off?
A lot
are you
of it
really
has
like,
for me.
exactly. Like, what grabs you about this whole thing that has just turned everything on its head for you? If people just learned how to speak to that, and I'm not saying be someone that just goes online ranting, please don't, as a business leader, but if you can turn that might be something new for you. That might be the new that you're missing. There might be something really disruptive now in how you present yourself that people will start to listen.
Putting a voice behind your.
And then, you really start to become something new to people, right? Being willing, guys, to let go of what was. Like being willing to let that go. Like that customer that you served and you loved and you gave everything to, they just might not be there anymore. And that's not their fault, and that's not your fault. So really taking a hard look and at the customer. And if your business can pivot, if you have your best team members around you, your support network, usually locally, if you can keep them in the loop, keep dreaming, keep, evaluating. People are still doing that right now. A lot of, pivot meetings and managerial, where do we go from here meetings. Those are
hard conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, who's with you on this? Who do we need to let go? Like, let's make some decisions. If you haven't made those kind of cutthroat decisions now, like, just get on it. It's tough. It's so tough. And the people that I see succeed, the people that are doing it, have really honed in on um, their position, their expertise. When I see chaos like this, my business, I have a consultancy with a program called Experts in Demand, and I'm like, let's go deep, and they're like, let's go deep and focus. That's the only way to come out of this. Like, go ahead or that's the only way to stand out anyway. We could talk about that all day, but yeah, hopefully I've answered from a small business perspective.
Yeah. I mean, that really does kind of tie back into exactly, what I've been trying to say over this, defining your value, right? I've tried to create that 5-piece mini series where it's the who, the why, the what, the where, and the how. You're trying to create this, simplicity, right? Because there's so much noise going on right now. There's so much noise. And it's so easy for us to be overwhelmed. It's like, before this, our attention span was very thin. And now it's like, there's so much going on that we've added in stress, uncertainty, financial worry, health worry. Like there's so much going on right now that it's almost like
impossible.
It's impossible to reach the customer. You have to get back to the basics. You have to be simple. You have to dive in on what you do.
Yeah,
easily.
The best. And I'll reiterate, like, say something in a new, like, say something in a new way, and say something they haven't heard before.
Right.
That's really important. Like, okay, maybe I know what I want to say, but it's like, sounds like everybody else. It's like, well, then you got to come up with that. You got to think a little bigger, and then you'll start being heard. There's too much noise to just think that more content will push your message out. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Unless you pay for it and get an ad and say it wherever you want. But
right. But yeah, it's creating unique opportunities to talk to our customers for sure.
Yeah. And if you guys, I mean, it's like, if I had individual questions, it'd be easier to give specific answers.
Of course, every business is different for sure. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time, coming on here and speaking with me about that. As always, thank you so much. And, we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for joining us.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you guys have any questions, you can find our Facebook group, Find Success as an Expert in Demand. Or if they want to reach me with individual questions, Amanda at catalystcc.ca.
Okay.
Happy to do that too.
And what's this this expert Facebook group about?
What I've done is pre-COVID, I had the agency, as I said, I ran a PR agency helping companies and everyone from consultants to companies in the world of public relations, writing the messages, strategic content, telling them what to say, where, and when. I just found that I was able to shift my focus into a program and a coaching-like course and program where now I can help individuals who want to become speakers and anyone who's authors, consultants, business owners who want to go from like, I'm a business owner, I have all these great ideas, I want to be the expert. How do I get people to take me seriously, right? I'm ready to be a thought leader. Yeah. That's what it's about. It's going from like experienced person to thought leadership. It's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it.
I mean, that's something that I've always struggled with too, right? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative. I look for problems and try and solve them. But then, you get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm also the CEO. I'm the owner. I'm not just working in my business. It's time to work on my business. And at that point, you become you become one with your business. It's you and your business. And how do you elevate your speaking, right? Like it's really hard to kind of to exist beside your brand and not in the shadow of it, right?
Exactly.
It's really hard.
Yeah. The secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
And we'll talk soon. Absolutely.
Thanks, Ben.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Take care.
Bye. Before I leave you for the day, I just wanted to give a shout out and a thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of our frontline healthcare workers and essential workers out there for all that you do. Thank you so much. To my fellow entrepreneurs, thank you for listening. Keep powering through. Stay positive, stay optimistic, and stay hungry. Thank you for subscribing below to our channel, listening to us on Apple Music, on Google Play, on Spotify, and we'll see you next week.